And they're both crying out to society. They're both trying to get people to follow them. So here we have this picture of this son that's just about to leave home on his own, walking down the journey of life. And we have two foolish women, or two women actually, one foolish and one wise, calling out to him and trying to get his attention to follow them. If you would go to a library filled with volumes of book, you could line them all up and you place the Bible on one end of the volumes of book. The Bible might look quite insignificant, but the reality is that in that Bible, that is the most complete set of instructions to humanity. There's more in this book, the Bible, than all the other books combined. So it should be the book that we should study the most. Yet so oftentimes we may read other books that write about the Bible. And there's nothing wrong with that. But we should read the Bible. We should spend time in the book and read, because the words that are written, the Bible says, that God says that every word that is written in the original manuscripts is inspired by the Holy Spirit. And so when we read that, God speaks to us. It's food to our soul. You've been at an archaeology site, and you'll look how they uncover and how they excavate the ruins. It's so tedious. They have these brushes and they brush, and they have little shovels with what they shovel so carefully, and then they brush off, and they might want to make sure they don't damage any of the old artifacts, and they slowly uncover what's there. And that's somewhat how we should study the Bible. Very carefully, every nugget, every gem that's there, we should try to draw it out and bring it out and chew on it and meditate on it, linger on it, and allow it to speak to us and to change our hearts and our lives. Beginning in verse 1 of chapter 9, it says, "Wisdom has built her house. She has hewn out her 7 pillars." So wisdom builds her house. There's nothing attractive about being on the street without a home or without a place of belonging. So for you to become anchored in life and have a place of belonging and purpose, it begins with wisdom. It says that she has set up its 7 pillars. Now, these 7 pillars are figurative. They do not represent 7 specifically known principles of wisdom. The number 7 in the Bible represents completeness, perfection, or even stability. The Bible says that the church was founded on the pillars of the prophets and the apostles. It speaks of stability. The foolish man built his house on the sand, while the wise man built his house on the pillar or on the rock. So if you follow wisdom and you apply it to your life, you will have a house that is complete, stable, and well anchored. Continuing verse 2, it says, "She has slaughtered her meat," that is wisdom. "She has slaughtered her meat. She has mixed her wine. She has also furnished her table. She has sent out her maidens. She cries out from the highest places of the city. Whoever is simple, let him turn in here. As for him who lacks understanding, she says to him, 'Come, eat my bread, and drink of the wine I have mixed. Forsake foolishness and live, and go in the way of understanding.'" Now, in the previous chapter, wisdom stands at the city gates and calls out. City gates is where, in those days, that's where the leadership of the church, the town mayor with all the leaders, they were in the city gates. That's where she is. She's calling out to them all. Now she's calling out to everyone. In fact, she has sent out her servants to beckon people to come to her house. She has prepared a meal for all who will follow her. They can come in. In Luke 14, Jesus said that many are invited to the feast. In fact, he spoke of this individual who sent out an invitation that who anyone might come. Out in the street, anyone, the lame, the blind, come and dine with me. But many of them, because they had other things going, they were sidetracked by other activities that seemed to be more important to them. They didn't come. Jesus, in Revelations 22, verse 17, there's this invite to come to him. It says, "And the Spirit and the bride say, come. And let him who hears say, come. And let him who thirsts come. Whoever desires, let him take the waters of life freely." Jesus is the embodiment of wisdom. And he calls your name. He wants you to come to him and receive from him. And when you do, you are wise and your house will be built. You will see it in the next chapter even, but as we go through the book of Proverbs over and over, we see the difference, the contrast between a wise person and a foolish person. The wise person will have so many troubles in life that the wise person will not have. And many of them are self-inflicted. They're not necessary. It doesn't mean that a wise person does not have struggles and trials. They do. But they're completely different. God allows trials sometimes to come in our life to grow us. Other times we experience trials we don't like. They may come from other sources. There's different ways. We're living in a fallen world, so trials do come. And they're not pleasant. But we have someone that helps us through these trials. There's a world of a difference, and we will see that as we continue through this book. So Jesus is the embodiment of wisdom, and he calls your name. He wants you to come to him and to dine and to grow and develop in your wisdom so that you might live well, so that your life might be anchored. Verse 7, "He who corrects a scoffer gets shame for himself, and he who rebukes a wicked man only harms himself. Do not correct a scoffer, lest he hate you. Rebuke a wise man, and he will love you. Give instruction to a wise man, and he will be still wiser. Teach a just man, and he will increase in learning." So again, here we see the contrast between the wise and the foolish. The foolish person has the attitude of knowing it all. They are not open to rebuke. They immediately defend themselves. In fact, they may take it one step further and start gossiping about the person who tried to correct them, try to slander the person who tried to correct them, to bring them down. But the wise person, on the other hand, receives rebuke. A wise person welcomes rebuke because he knows that it will make him wiser. He will increase in learning. I believe that it is a natural tendency. It's our natural tendency, when we're rebuked, to defend ourselves. But when we do, we close ourselves up to learning. Matthew 25:29 says, "For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have abundance. But from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away." See, when you are rebuked and you receive it, you grow. You get a little bit more. You've developed a little bit more. You become a little bit wiser. But if you are rebuked and you push it away, you defend yourselves, or maybe even worse, slander the person who's tried to correct you, it's the opposite. It's taken away. See, in one way, it's like you have resources in the bank, and when you receive rebuke, you're getting dividends. You're being paid. It's like having money in savings. You're getting more and more. But if you are not receiving rebuke, it's like having a loan. And it's eating on your interest. And it's becoming less and less. And so it's important that we receive criticism. See, sometimes criticism may come in a way that is not pleasant. It could be that someone comes and rebukes you and they don't have the right attitude. The way they come to you is not pleasant. But if you are wise, you listen. And maybe much of it is the wrong attitude, but look through it. Is there something behind what they're saying that is true? Maybe there's a 10% truth behind it, or 20%. And you receive that. You throw the other part away, the wrong attitude maybe, but you receive the truth that is there. That takes character to do that. So if you want to know how wise you are, if you want to put yourself on a scale, how wise you are is, well, how well do you receive rebuke? If someone reprimands you. Verse 10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. For by me your days will be multiplied, and the years of your life will be added to you. See, the beginning, the foundation to becoming wise begins by having proper respect for God. See, there are people who do not believe in God, who are seemingly wise, but their foundations have been built on sand. When the winds of judgment will come to their lives, they will not withstand judgment. They will crash like a house that is built on sand. Respect for God gives us that solid foundation that will withstand judgment day. Verse 11, for by me your days will be multiplied, and the years of life will be added to you. If you are wise for yourself, and if you scoff, you will bear it alone. A wise person may well live longer, physically, have a longer life because of their choices. That is possible. It's not always the case, but it is very much the case generally. A wise person will benefit from his choices, from his decisions. The Bible is full of verses that speak of others. You know, we should look out not just for our own interests, but the interests of others. We should always be others focused. And then we are last. But this verse is probably one of the strongest expressions of individualism in the Bible. This speaks of you. Your benefits, about you. See, we like it when it's all about us, right? The truth is it's not. It's about others. But this verse actually speaks about you. What it says is that you will be the benefactor. You will be the one that will either suffer loss from your foolishness, or you will be the one that will bear the fruit, the benefit of wisdom. If you make good decisions and you're wise and you respect God and you move in that direction, you are someone that is open to rebuke, and is intentional about learning in his life and gaining wisdom and avoiding bad roads, bad paths down the journey of life, you walk the right way, then it says, you are wise for yourself. You will benefit. You know, maybe you have people, if you're my age or older, that maybe grew up with you, and you grew up playing together, riding bicycles together, went to school together, and if people would have looked at you, they would have said, equal opportunity. Today, when you look at your life and look at your friend's life or people that you grew up with, you're miles apart. Miles apart. Why? And that's a question we need to ask ourselves. It's going down a journey of life, making wrong paths or wrong turns. See, it's not that one wrong turn will destroy your life necessarily. It can, but it's many little choices. Many little choices. They either start moving you one direction or the other direction. Every day we make decisions. Are we wise? Are we open to learning? If you are wise, you're wise for yourself. You will gain the benefits. If you are foolish, you'll bear it alone. You'll bear the consequences. Think about that just a little bit. That's a strong statement. Verse 13, a foolish woman is clamorous. She is simple and knows nothing. For she sits at the door of her house, on the seat by her highest places of the city, to call to those who pass by, who go straight on their way. Whoever is simple, let him turn and hear. And as for him who lacks understanding, she says to him, stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. But he does not know that the dead are there, and that her guests are in the depths of hell. Note the parallelism. Wisdom is crying out, inviting everyone that will come to come in and dine with her at the table, and so does foolishness. Wisdom was calling out and even has servants going out. She was at the gate. She called out to everyone that might come, everyone who was coming into the city. She was calling them to wisdom. And then she has servants that are going out in the city, and they're all calling out and saying, hey, come in to wisdom. But foolishness has no servants. She's first of all too foolish to have servants in the first place. But yet, what we see is that foolishness, perhaps in many cases, has more people following than wisdom. Wisdom has many servants throughout the streets calling. Foolishness is alone. One woman alone, and she has a lot of followers. Why is that? Because foolishness appeals to the senses, but wisdom is of the mind. See, it is much easier for our senses to be stimulated than our mind. Sinful behavior seems more exciting than the disciplines of a Christian life. Let me repeat that. Sinful behavior seems more exciting than the disciplines of a Christian life. I was married at once, and I went there to a restaurant, and it was actually a Subway. I went to the Subway, and I sat down, and there was a young couple that came in, maybe early 20s or something like that. Boy and a girl, and you could see they came from the gym, the way they were clothed. And man, you should have looked at their bodies. They were they were fit. And I watched them, what they took, and they didn't take any bread or anything like that. They just took the salads and the meat, and that's it. And they just put that on their plate, and they went and they ate. And I mean, man, the discipline. I like what I saw. I like the guy, he's buff and his muscles, and man, it looked good. And the woman, she was like trim and fit. Man, I felt like going, putting some money down, it was just like, that was, but you know what that takes to get there? Discipline. It takes discipline. I saw that. Just what they ate. And I loved the results. I loved the results. It was so good. And so it is. But is it easy? No, it's not easy. Believe me. If you would see their training and what they go through and the discipline, is that it's not easy. But the results, man, they are so appealing. And so it is with our own life. If we are disciplined and we are willing to follow the disciplines of a Christian life, is it easy? No. It can be hard. You give up things. You give up the nice, the fluffy, warm bread and other things that are so pleasant to the flesh. You give these things up. You say no to them. And you say yes to the disciplines of a Christian life. Guess what? Wait till the years go by. And the fruit will become more and more evident. It'll compile. It'll compound in your life. So people will turn down the invite of wisdom and to come to her banquet because the senses, it's more appealing to go to the stolen food and to eat in secret. That seems more appealing to the flesh and to the senses. But the end result, it compounds in a person's life until you have a house that is destroyed. See, what we want, what you want, and what I want, what our flesh wants, is that we want to go downhill because it's easy. But we want to reap the results of going uphill. See, you walk uphill, you climb a mountain, and you get up to the top, and you look, and that scenery is so beautiful. My kids and I, we went down south some months ago, and we walked up a trail, and there was this waterfall. It's like 1,000 feet, and we it was hard climbing up on that hill. And we went all the way up, and then from there we could look all the way east, and we could see the ocean. It was beautiful. But man, we were done when we were climbing up. It was hard. But what we want is we want that scenery. But we want it while we're going down. Because it's easy to go down. But it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. You have to climb that mountain to get to that scenery. So before reaching for forbidden fruit, take a long look at what happens to those who eat it. Eve, Adam, they were living in a house we could say that was founded, it was stable, it was solid, it was built on wisdom, on God Himself. And then the senses kicked in. Man, would that be nice to taste of this forbidden fruit? And they took and they ate. And their house collapsed like a stack of cards. And from that day on, there was the fall. The house had eroded because they were obeying their senses and not wisdom, not their mind. Continuing in chapter 10, this is now really the beginning of a new section of the book. The first 9 chapters, as I said, are more introductory, and now chapter 10 and onward are really the collection of Solomon's Proverbs, a little bit more in earnest. Some of these Proverbs go in series, several phrases combined, others stand alone. And we continued with this arrangement all the way down to chapter 22. And then there's again a shift in the book of Proverbs. Proverbs are truths, as I said before. Proverbs are truths in concentrated form. They are powerful truths condensed into a small package. And so these Proverbs are meant to be meditated on. We read through a chapter or 2 or 3, and that's great, that's fine to kind of get the general overview of it. But these Proverbs are meant to be meditated on, to chew on them, to linger on them, like a cow who's chewing her cud, and just allow these truths to sink in, to become a part of her life. Verse 1 says, a Proverbs of Solomon. A wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish son is the grief of his mother. Now Solomon obviously was a wise son. David must have seen something in Solomon. I believe that he saw the wisdom that was displayed in the life of Solomon, and he chose him as a successor. But a foolish son is a grief to his mother. Now we know that Solomon became foolish later on in his life, but it would have been after his mother passed away, but he did become foolish eventually. Verse 2, the treasures of wickedness profit nothing, but the righteous delivers from death. Jesus spoke of the rich fool in Luke chapter 12. The rich fool gathered great wealth, but he was not rich towards God. See, in the end, riches will not bring any profit. You cannot take the riches of this world into eternity. You can't. So when we stand face to face with our Creator, the question will be, what have we done with Jesus? Our checkbook will not have any influence on the outcome in that day. So treasures of wickedness profit nothing. They won't help you. But their righteousness delivers from death. The Lord will not allow the righteous soul to famish, but he casts away the desires of the wicked. Again, here's the contrast between the righteous and the foolish. A righteous person can have a soul that is well nourished, even if physically things are not as he would like them to be. In the end, his desire will be fulfilled. When he stands face to face with God, his desire will be fulfilled. The wicked, on the other hand, will suffer loss. In fact, I believe that for the righteous person, the desires may well oftentimes already be fulfilled on this side of eternity. See, the way God works is that when you follow him with all of your heart, and he is first in your life, God will give you a desire. Why? Because God is leading you. God is directing you. God has a call on your life. So he gives you a desire And then he fulfills that desire, and that is so satisfactory. God may give you, it can be early, God may give you a desire for a spouse. If you are a person that is following the Lord and you're prayerful about it, then God actually may give you the desire of your heart. He leads that way. Or God gives the desire for even like a ministry or work or whatever it might be, and God leads you that way so you actually have that. When I was early, maybe in my 20s, early 20s, before I was married, I remember when I would go to the field or we would go to work and we would go to Cayo and on our way to the field or other places, I would look at all the churches. I would see every church building. I was just in my 20s. I didn't know that God really, I knew I'd called ministry, but I didn't know that I would be a pastor one day. But I noticed every church. I looked at them. I saw them. I noticed them. God was placing that in my heart to pastor a church one day. And I had an interest in that. God gave me an interest. And then he makes me a pastor what I have an interest in. That's fulfilling. That's fulfilling. And that's what God does. He will do that in your life. When you put him first in your life, he will give you that. Another thing that I can throw out as a way of encouragement to you. I always thought that I would be a pilot. That's what I wanted to. I had great interest. When I was a kid, I would build toys of airplanes because I wanted to fly one day. And I was in Canada with the intention that I was going to get my pilot license and go to commercial. I actually had a guy who said he could propel me to go to, commercial. And it was there that I sensed that God did not want me to do that. That God had a call for me here. And I gave it up. And I came back and I continued my life here. But today, I have a pilot license and I fly. And I see it as God's fulfillment. God said, you know what? You gave it up. I'm going to give it back to you, at least to a smaller degree. But that's fulfillment. That's a gift from God. And God does that. He does it in your life. You give it to God, you put him first in your life, and God will give you fulfillment. It's the opposite of Satan. Satan will put a desire in your heart that is not from God, and then when that comes to being, it is so bitter, it is destructive, and it destroys you. Destroys your house. That's the opposite of God and Satan. If you put God first in your life, you cannot go wrong. You cannot go wrong. Verse 4, he who has a slack hand becomes poor, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. He who gathers in summer is a wise son. He who sleeps in harvest is a son who causes shame. See, a lazy person will be poor. But that does not mean that all poor people are lazy. That doesn't mean that. Proverbs 19:15 says, laziness casts one into a deep sleep, and an idle person will suffer hunger. See, God has given us a body with which to work, and we should work with diligence as unto the Lord. Colossians 3:23 says, and whatever you do, do it heartily as to the Lord and not with men. Give it your all. Work hard as unto the Lord. Whatever you do, do it as if you're working for God. Wherever your job is, wherever you're going tomorrow to work, do it as if you're doing it for God. Give it your all. Not pleasing men, but pleasing God. Verse 6, blessings are on the head of the righteous, but violence covers the mouth of the wicked. The memory of the righteous is blessed, but the name of the wicked will rot. In another translation, the NIV Reader's Version, it puts it a little bit different. It says, the memory of the righteous is blessed, is what it says here in this translation. And that translation, it says that the righteous, it will be a blessing to remember the righteous. It puts it a little bit different. See, and it is true. It is a blessing to remember righteous people. Noah, Abraham, David Livingston, Martin Luther, and maybe other people that you know in your life that have passed away that are righteous people. It's a blessing to remember their name. But is it a blessing to remember Adolf Hitler? Does that like really inspire you? So a wicked person will be forgotten. It's not a blessing to remember them. But the righteous, the contrast, for them it is. Do not correct a scoffer lest he hate you. Rebuke a wise man and he will love you. Give instruction to a wise man and he will be wiser. Teach a just man and he will increase in learning. The fear of the Lord is the beginning. I'm reading the wrong chapter here. Went back to the wrong chapter. Verse 8 of chapter 10 here. A wise heart will receive commands, but a prating fool will fall. He who walks with integrity walks securely, but he who perverts his ways will become known. In other words, a pervert will become known because he will get caught. See, people may get away with sin for a while, but eventually they get caught. Verse 10, he who winks with eyes causes trouble, but a prating fool will fall. The mouth of the righteous is a well of life, but the violence covers the mouth of the wicked. Hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all sins. Wisdom is found on the lips of him who has understanding, but a rod is for the back of him who is devoid of understanding. A wise people store up knowledge, but the mouth of the foolish is near destruction. The rich man's wealth is a strong city. The destruction of the poor is their poverty. The labor of the righteous leads to life, the wages of the wicked to sin. He who keeps instruction is in the way of life, but he who refuses correction goes astray. Whoever hides hatred has lying lips, and whoever spreads slander is a fool. Spreading lies is foolish. There's a verse in 1 Thessalonians 4:11 that says that we are to mind our own business. And sometimes I think we can get so preoccupied with other people's problems and we begin gossiping about other people. Slander, it's not wise, it's foolish. Don't do that. Don't become involved in affairs of others by spreading rumors, or even worse, spreading false rumors. Verse 19, in a multitude of words, sin is not lacking, but he who restrains his lips is wise. The tongue of the righteous is a choice silver. The heart of the wicked is worth little. The lips of the righteous feed many, but fools die for lack of wisdom. See, it speaks here of the tongue. The tongue is such a small member in our body, but it can do so much. With it, we can communicate. With it, we can hurt people. We can bring healing to people. We can destroy people, or we can build people. With it, we can cut or bind up. With the tongue, we can praise or we can mock. We can glorify God or we can grieve God. The tongue is such a small member, James says, and it boasts great things. See how great a forest a little fire kindles, And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. The tongue is so set among our members that it defiles the whole body and sets on fire the course of nature, and it's set on fire by hell. We must be careful with our tongue. Careful what we say. In Britain, there's a tombstone. You can go there and you can see the tombstone, and this is what it says, etched into the stone. It says, beneath this stone is a lump of clay. Lies Arabella Young, who is on the 24th of May, began to hold her tongue. She began to hold her tongue when she passed away. I think this is a short saying, but it shows her weakness. Let us be careful with our tongue. Let us be constructive and build. Use it to elevate and to build each other. Encourage and praise God with it. Verse 22, the blessing of the Lord makes one rich, and he adds no sorrow with it. Did you notice that? The blessing of the Lord makes one rich, and he adds no sorrow with it. See, there are many rich people who are miserable and have great sorrow along with their riches. Ahab was such a man. He wore a crown lying on his bed, and he was pouting that he could not have the vineyard of Naboth. But the righteous, it says, adds no guilt. Trapp, who's a commentator, he said this, those three vultures shall be driven away that constantly feed on the wealthy's worldling's heart. Care in getting, fear in keeping, grief in losing. See, that's the fear of the person of this world. But to the Christian, God gives, he says, wealth without woe, store without sore, and gold without guilt. That's the difference between the righteous and the unrighteous. Verse 23, to do evil is like sport to a fool, but a man of understanding has wisdom. The fear of the wicked will come upon him, and the desire of the righteous will be granted. Notice that. The desire of the righteous will be granted. When the whirlwind passes by, the wicked is no more, but the righteous has an everlasting foundation. See how many times that is so true. The wicked die. Their life is cut short. Or their life is just a difficult life. They're either in gangs or in drugs or destructive habits, or there's corruption, there's fear. There's just not that peace, that longevity that you have with the righteous. It's just not there. Verse 26, the vinegar, as vinegar to the teeth and smoke to the eyes, so is a lazy man who to those who send him. A man, send a man on an errand, and you will regret it. Because a lazy man always has to be pushed. You have to push him. It's difficult. Verse 27, the fear of the Lord prolongs days, but the years of the wicked shall be shortened. The hope of the righteous will be gladness, but the expectation of the wicked will perish. The way of the Lord is strength for the upright, but the destruction will come to the workers of iniquity. The righteous will never be removed, but the wicked will not inhabit the earth. The mouth of the righteous brings forth wisdom, but the perverse tongue will be cut out. The lips of the righteous know what is acceptable, but the mouth of the wicked what is perverse. So again, we see the difference between the believer and the unbeliever, between the foolish and the wise. The foolish, they have no foundation. Their life is empty. They have trouble and fear. And what they desire does not come to be. That's the foolish person. The wise person, on the other hand, they have a foundation. Their life is filled with blessings. They have peace and victory. And what they desire comes to them. That's basically a nutshell what this book is saying. Let us be wise. Let us increase in learning. Let us be open to correction. and to criticism in our life. And let us be intentional about reading the Bible and making God first in our life. The term is sometimes used forced feeding. If you feel that your desire for the senses is a bit stronger than your desire to intellectually or to follow the disciplines of a Christian life, you could say, then force feed yourself. What that means is you just decide to read the Bible. You just do it. You don't feel like it, you just do it. You just continue doing it. And as you do, that desire will increase. And the desire for the senses, for the foolishness of this world, will strangely dim. That desire will just go away. More and more as you put Christ the center of your life and you feed on Him every day. Father, we thank you for your word this morning. We thank you for the wisdom that is found in these chapters. And we see the contrast between the wise and the unwise, between the righteous and or we could say the wise and the foolish. And we just thank you again, Lord, that you have given us this instruction manual. It's so complete. It's so full. And we can learn from it. And we just pray that our hearts would always be open and receptive. And that we would all grow, every one of us, and become more like Christ. Help us to feed ourselves daily, continually, so that the desires would dim the things that are of this world. In Jesus' name.